Welcome to Sunday Reflections. Today is President's Day, and we're here today because there's a lot of different days this week that'll be with you on all the times. You'll have it on tomorrow on Fat Tuesday, and then you'll have it on the next day where you have Ash Wednesday, and also Ramadan that afternoon, that evening. And then it just keeps going on, and so you'll find it all the way to March 2nd and 3rd when you have the Purim for the Jewish holiday. So there's where we are today, but today we're going to be talking about Cornerstone. And we happen to have with us the person that knows them the best, Mike Davis. I know I haven't seen you in a while on this show. You're really back here again at 904 now?
I am. This is only the fourth show that I've done since I stopped in May of last year.
Well, you know, I had to pay you a lot of money to get in here, so it was good. I think I gave you 2 cents.
I think you gave me 4 times the amount of money you gave me last time, which is still 0. Okay. But I'm very happy to be here.
All right. Well,
I'm very, very happy.
Well, we're going to talk about this in just a little bit more, and you're going to be able to share this with everybody out here, and they'll be able to understand what we're talking about. But before I start, I got a couple of people that I need to talk about.
You got to pay the bills.
I got to pay the bills.
Troy doesn't let you do this for free.
That's right.
Especially Blake. Blake Blake will keep that money going.
There we go. All right. Well, the Shih family is the ones that are so much here with us, and we give thanks to them a lot because they are one of the most generous. And as you know, I keep looking, it's community-focused people. I don't need to even look up anymore because I know who they are. They're so good. They have the Tringali Barn, and I know they're having the at some point coming up here, they have the very other nonprofit people coming to see them. And so I know all of that. And it's a premier venue for both weddings and you name it. You call the Tringali Barn and you'll know about it because the leadership is Chris Shih, but the family continues to support. The entire county continues to support the countless local causes, and they support them, and their commitment is to giving back. And you can find that out. It's always a giving back. And it makes the lasting impact, and we truly are grateful that they're in our community. There's no question about it, and we're thankful for that because the Shih family, you make St. Johns County much stronger. Thank you so much. And then we have, again, the DJ's Clam Shack. And I know we've said that every time, and I told you that it goes all the way through. It's right there on 21 Hippolytus Street, and it's where the Northeast meets Key West. And I've had it in places, and you know what? They serve up lobster rolls. They do all kinds of things. They have the fried clams, the conch fritters, and just, you know, the ingredients that are just fantastic of high quality. And they're open from Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 9. And it's the perfect spot to grab a bite and stroll all around old St. Augustine streets. And you'll find out that it's the best seafood experiences in this country. So you enjoy both of those, and we'll be talking about it. So I want to say a few things, too, about the folks here that are listening or watching, and we'll do that over this week. But I want to know this. You happen to have a company here that's got A.D. Davis on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, what does A.D. Davis mean?
So A.D. was my grandfather, and A.D. grew up in Madison, Florida. Came over here. One of his friends said, "Hey, we know you want to get off the tobacco farm," because he was from a family of 13 on the tobacco farm, and said, "Hey, if you want to come over here and work, I've got a job, and you can stay here." So A.D. worked for the railroads. He worked for the shipyards during World War II, worked for a local contractor named Charlie LeBray, who eventually retired, and A.D. kind of took over his clientele. One of the cool stories about our family and being here for 72 years in the construction business is the first house A.D. built in 1954 was for Hamilton Upchurch. And when we were cleaning out his garage 6 years ago, after my grandmother had passed away, we found the original plans. I have the original blueprints upstairs. They're framed, and it's a really neat thing. Tracy Upchurch wasn't even born yet.
Right.
We still are working for the Upchurch family. 72 years later, we just finished a project for Beth and Tracy Upchurch. And so we take a lot of pride in that you have these families that have worked together for a long time and are such good friends. And so it's really good. But AD, he had 8th grade education, but he studied his trade. He wanted to be good at his trade. Got a reputation for being very detail oriented and meticulous. And then the only bad thing for AD is he had heart problems.
Yeah.
And so he had a pacemaker in the late 70s, early 80s. He was one of the first ones with a pacemaker here in St. Augustine. He had his first heart attack in his 30s.
Wow.
He asked my dad to come back. My dad had gone to school at the University of Florida, graduated with a degree in building construction, was working for Daniels Construction Company up in the Carolinas, which eventually became Flora Daniels, and I think they're just Flora now. They're huge. They were doing power plants and dams and huge manufacturing facilities in
I've heard of that.
In Puerto Rico. So, and Dad was just in their estimating department, right? And so Granddaddy asked him to come back. Dad came back in 71, which for me was an interest because I started kindergarten here and went all the way through and at CPS in St. Joe. But Dad and Granddaddy continued to grow that business. Unfortunately for AD, in 83, December of 83, he sold the business to my dad. And then 6 months later, he passed away. He never really got to retire. And it was a heart attack that got him. But he just a wonderful, I mean, I look back on the limited amount of time I had with him because I was 17 when he passed away. Just some great times. I can remember working down at Flagler College one day as a probably 15 or 16-year-old, putting together a cabinet, a closet, and AD coming in and showing me a few tricks that really helped. And about 3 years ago, when we removed that cabinet from one of the dorm rooms, it was just a cabinet, right? And it had worn out its usefulness. But to me, it was a kind of a moment in history with my granddad. And so I was a little choked up about it when we took that one out. I was like, that was gonna hurt. But so my dad owned the business from 83 until 2002. He sold it to me, and then he worked until 2015. And then unfortunately, a few years later, he passed away in 2019. So it's been I've got 2 sons working in the business right now, they're both doing a phenomenal job. So it's really fun. We've got a lot of family. I am the worst person to ask about family in a business, right? They tell you don't have family in a business, right?
That's right.
So I have a cousin on my mom's side who is our office manager and vice president of operations in the office, and a cousin on Mark Cosgrove, and then a cousin on my dad's side, Wayne Davis Jr., who's a little bit older, and Wayne runs all our field operations. Another cousin's wife, who's our bookkeeper, 2 sons, and then several people that are like family, right? They've been with us for so long. Our average time somebody working with us is probably about 8 or 9 years, and that's really rare in the construction industry. So we're very blessed to have a lot of family in the business, and it's really fun to be able to do that.
Well, I know that in addition to that, as you have been doing so many things, you've also helped in some of the nonprofit ones as well, especially one most recently on West King Street.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So Greg White came in to talk to me probably 2017, 18, maybe 19. It's probably around 19 when he came in. And
you said your dad passed away.
My dad passed away in 2019.
What was the month?
July.
Okay, my mom passed away in October of that year.
Yeah. And it was actually on my birthday.
Yeah.
Which was kind of I've talked to some friends, and we talk about that passing of the torch and those things. But
well, just to finish that story, my wife passed away 2 days before her, but 2 years later. Yeah. So there it goes.
I'm a big believer in these dates kind of recycle themselves.
That's right.
And we will laugh. We've got a lot of family that are sharing birthdays. We have a lot of family that share a birthday and an anniversary. Sure. I mean, it's interesting. Some people say, well, you guys steal a lot of days. It's like, no, we just all want to be on that same day and we want to share that.
That's right.
Greg White came in and had a conversation with Reese, who had just come into the office, my son and I, and Dwalia was with him. And they said, we want to build this facility in West King. And I said, I don't know that we'll actually build it, right? There's a whole process to go through and all of these things. But I said, I'll help you in any way that I can. So if I need to sit on the board, if I need to help you, I recognize that it was a building that was significant for that West Augustine community, and I didn't want to pass up an opportunity.
Why don't you describe that to the people that may not know this?
So what the West Augustine community did is they said, we want a clinic in our community. Long overdue, needed to be there. But to help that clinic run, they built the building large enough so that it basically is an entire health and wellness facility. So the YMCA is in there, Epic is in there, Wildflower Clinic is in there, which Wildflower has been doing amazing work over there for a long time. Great organization. And then there's a group out of Jacksonville that helps with at-risk kids. And so they have an entire facility built around helping the community. So the state ended up giving them some money. The county gave them some money. We were selected through the bid process to build the building. And it has been just a great relationship. Greg White, Mark Bailey, Dwalia, all the rest of that team. And then they hired...
Henry Dean also got very involved with that.
Henry was involved. Sarah Arnold was a big involvement in that, right? And recognizing that this needs to be done. And then Gerald Chester was hired as a consultant, and he's one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with, right. and did a really good job of shepherding them through, because they've not built anything.
Right.
And this wasn't a small thing. This was a $8 million project, right? Yeah. And so Gerald was absolutely phenomenal in working through that. And we had a task of being done by December of last year. We were pretty much done with the building by November. All that punch out stuff takes a little bit of time. And then closing out a job, when people say, oh, you can build without any problems in St. Johns County. I mean, the closeout process takes a while. It can take months to close something out. And that's nothing against any of the agencies. And this one, the fire department and building department at St. Johns County were absolutely phenomenal. The utility department at the city of St. Augustine was phenomenal. We found out in August of last year that the water line or sewer line we were supposed to tie into wasn't where it was shown on the plans.
Right.
It was in the middle of King Street.
Yeah.
So to get to it, we had to shut down King Street. And we found this out 2 weeks before school started.
Wow.
And so we looked at everybody in a meeting and said, I know this usually would take weeks for us to get approvals, but if you want this done before the buses start rolling, we need this approved now. And they all looked and they said, you're right. We don't really want to impede, because Webster's school, the bus was right on Brevard Street. So they were great. They were phenomenal in helping us get that done. Our site contractor, WG Gardner, was great in getting that done. So, I mean, it was an overnight process. We shut down the road at night and did the work at night, but everybody said, look, we recognize if it's going to get done, it has to get done before school starts, and run that. And then we had a couple kind of design things that we had to work out with the fire department, and they were just, county fire department, Rob Dowling and his staff were great. Really good to work with.
Well, that's why it's so good to do it. Well, I know one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is about the cornerstone. And so we're going to need a little bit of talking about it, first of all, from a construction standpoint. What is the cornerstone that might be able to help people understand that? And then we'll get into some other aspects of it.
And a lot of buildings that are significant buildings, you'll lay a cornerstone, and that'll be the first stone and the first cornerstone that's laid. And the significance is usually it will have some symbolic information on it, right? The year the building was built.
They sometimes put things down below.
They do as well. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. There's sometimes you'll put, I'm going to say a time capsule or something like that, where they want you to be able to find things down the road. We just did that. We put some plaques behind walls up at Flagler College for different reasons, so that the next time it's renovated 100 years from now, somebody will find those.
Right.
And we also, during the renovation process, found all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Including a shoe in the wall.
There you go.
So from the 1800s.
Wow.
So,
1888 is
yes.
when it started. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It
was called what? Ponce de Leon Hotel.
Ponce de Leon Hotel. And it was Flagler's signature hotel at the time. He didn't quit building hotels. The Breakers became his signature hotel shortly after that. But it was a phenomenal project for St. Augustine. It changed downtown St. Augustine.
Yeah, but people didn't have to come there for a day. They had to come there for a season.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not it's not a one-day deal.
No, and it was part of that Gilded Age when there was a lot of money in certain families. And if you went somewhere, you expected to be treated incredibly well. We were out in Colorado and stayed at a hotel in Redstone that was built around the same time. A lot of the same features and characters that are in the Ponce,
Right.
but it was another one. It was built by a guy that became incredibly wealthy in the mining business out in Colorado in the late 1800s.
Sure.
And he had the mines down the road. He had the school that he built. He had his own house that became the hotel. I mean, it was just the amount of money that was generated during that growth period was unbelievable.
Yeah. No, and they also brought Tiffany glass and everything else. Yeah, it was really amazing. And so we're going to get into a little bit more about the Flagler College in just a minute or two. But again, from the cornerstone as they do it, I've also been told that helps you meet how you're going to make the rest of the building.
Yes.
Is that what it's done too?
It does. It's a layout point. So when we lay out a building, we want it to be square. We want it to be the right dimensions. So yeah, that cornerstone is a huge part of that, right? It's a starting point, and it's a marker that you work off of.
And isn't it also true that from the cornerstone, that's when other things are born?
Yes.
So in other words, if you are the cornerstone, you are the beginning of all of the things that will happen next.
And everything else gets built on top of you.
That's
right? You carry the weight of all the other things.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about a cornerstone on the religious side too.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll get to that when I get to this poem it's one that I've really never thought I would do because it's got a whole bunch of words that come out of the Bible. And it will be so much so about the cornerstone and why that's important too. So we'll get to that in a little bit longer, but not yet. Yeah. So now here you are at Flagler College. I've been there when it was all there. I had my son Dylan. He graduated from there, became the mayor of St. Augustine Beach, and all of those things, and knew all these people because he did the stuff for the basketball. And he did the radio show for that, and did all those things. And you have been helpful on all of that. We talked a little bit this morning about being across the street a little bit further down, where there was a big building there that was right next to a church.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, the church was first, and then there comes this building that's there that is now being redone again, been approved to be another hotel again. So from when you went into to do the helping the Flagler College, because they had a lot of problems, and those problems were about to make all the students not have a place to stay.
Yeah, we were in there in the summer of 22 to kind of do a facelift, and the building let us know it needed more than a facelift, right? And so the history of those renovations is my grandfather started in 71, 72, doing renovation work. Craig Thorne was a local architect. The college asked Craig, will you be the architect of record on all the renovations? And Craig said, I'll do it as long as AD is the contractor. So he and my grandfather had a great relationship, a working relationship. So we built our company around that, hire a bunch of people, work for 90 days during the summer, but you could only do pieces of the college at a time. And it was funding related. The college was a new institution at the time. There was no huge donor to say you can do all of this work at once. So when the east side suffered that water damage due to the sprinkler line breaking, you all of a sudden you had the ability and John Delaney and Laura Stevenson were phenomenal in making decisions. And this was July of 2022. Within a couple of weeks, they said, we can't just renovate the 40 plus rooms that were damaged. We had to do the whole east side. So it gave the college a chance for the first time in over 130 years to renovate everything, right? To do it all new plumbing, all new electrical, all new HVAC, all new fire protection, all new, meeting all of the current codes and ratings. And if you looked at the building over time, as it got added onto, you had a lot of stuff that just got run down the center of the hallway. And so it looked a little industrial, and it didn't look like the old hotel. It looks like the old hotel now. So absolutely phenomenal. And the college has done an amazing job of maintaining all of that Tiffany glass and the murals and the Flagler room. I mean, in the Flagler room alone on the west side, we set scaffolding up. And then on top, and the scaffolding was about a foot below the ceiling in the Flagler room. And then we had to put mattresses on it and inflate the they were all inflatable mattresses to try to put just enough pressure on those murals so that as we were working above, we didn't lose any of that ceiling. Wow. And a lot of the keyways, and the keyway is that connecting point that actually supports the plaster ceiling. Some of those were breaking, and some of them were just from age and weight and termites. So we were talking to the structural engineer, and we said, well, how much pressure do we put on this? And he said, well, a little bit. And I said, well, what's a little bit? What's the pressure for a little bit? And he said, and not too much. And I said, well, what's the not too much, right? So can you give me an engineering term? What is the PSI for that? And, well, don't push up on it and don't let it fly. And it's like, well, that, but fortunately, and then when we worked above that, that was an area where you couldn't do normal demolition. You couldn't just continue to drop things on the floor. You had to protect that ceiling below. So we had a couple little pieces that fell, but, and for all the activity, a complete gut upstairs.
Well, the chairman of Flagler is also has a contracting firm, and
yes.
So I'm sure that he was watching and seeing what was going on, and probably being involved. So
yeah, we had a phenomenal team, and the college selected Michael Blake. And Michael was working for another firm. He had worked for Ken Smith for years. Ken was a very well-known historical architect. And Michael had gone to work for Jeff and his firm. And Michael had done all the drawings. He'd done all the background work.
Wow.
And so he knew the building better than anybody else. He had drawn it through all the years of renovations and stuff during the 90s and the early 2000s. And so just absolutely amazing to have him on our team, and just a no nonsense blue collar architect. What do you need? I'll get it for you. And just really, really fun to work with.
Yeah. I know that Enzo Torcoletti had some things when he was doing his teaching there at that as well, to kind of keep things going as well. But, can't keep everything going if it's not working.
No. And the very first meeting we had with Michael and the air conditioning company, like, we don't know how to get from the basement to the fourth floor. Sure. And Michael pulls up a drawing on a big screen and says, well, here's the 3 locations I've identified for you that go from, his knowledge of the building and how to put it together.
You couldn't afford anything less.
Was absolutely great. Yeah. He was wonderful. And the college let us build that team, which really helped it. I mean, because the east side, we had less than 12 months to completely gut that building, build it all back. And we were working Saturdays and Sundays and nights. And
that was one of your biggest projects.
At the time, it was the biggest project. And then when we did the west side, it was an even bigger project because there were some more things that were added to it. But yes, and the faith that the college had in us and that we had in them was just a great team. And we've been, partners in that building since 71. So it's been really... It's been a great relationship.
Well, you're part of it. That's right. That's right. So let's talk about the cornerstone there. I was talking to you this morning about it.
Yes.
And asking you, hey, tell me where that cornerstone is, because it's done in 1888.
Yes.
Not now, because you weren't making a new cornerstone. You already had it there. So where is that located?
I honestly don't know. You're going to tell me, because I don't. And I've been through that basement. I've been up in the attic. I've been all the way up to the top of the roofs and stuff.
Well,
and so
I'm going to be able to let other people have that look. And if you want to find out where is the cornerstone of what was then known as Ponce de Leon Hotel of 1888, and there is a place. And if you look under where the student stuff is, you'll find out where they go, and you'll see that cornerstone. So there you go. So if you come out there and you're going down King Street, just look at it, because it's facing King Street.
Well, a lot of people don't know, Flagler built that on an old creek bed.
Right, that's right.
So Lake Maria Sanchez.
We had a lot of that all the way through, all the way through downtown.
All the way through down. So Lake Maria Sanchez, which is at the south end of Cordova Street, right? That creek ran all the way up under where the Leitner Museum is, under where Flagler College is, and then almost all the way up to where the Methodist Church is.
Right.
Across from the biscuit place now.
There were canals here. There were canals. Yeah.
So he filled all that in. So there's a walking space that's about 4.5, 5 feet tall. You wouldn't make it. You're too tall. Troy made it phenomenally going through there as a college student. But yeah, that whole area underneath the college is, people don't realize it. You can stand under the college and you're looking out the slats and you can see the roadbed at King Street. It's that far in the ground.
Well, that's why they're worried about flooding up on King Street right now, because it's part of where it's always been. We have all these things coming out from the water, and it comes right straight down those canals.
Yes. It's still following the path it did before. It's just streets now rather than.
That's right. That's what happened. So, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're doing it. We've done the construction side. We've talked about what's going on. But today is President's Day. And our first president, what's his name?
George Washington.
George Washington. And we're going to show you something about the cornerstone of George Washington when he is there. And you can see that he has been always the one that came in for the cornerstone in Washington, became Washington, D.C. And you can see that cornerstone that he has done as our first president of the United States. And that's also how important cornerstones are. So now we've got that going. We had some more pictures of the Flagler College when it was there, and you can see that coming too. And you'll see how that has some relationship to the cornerstones that are always there. And that gives you some idea of what it looks like and how it was and where it should be. So there you go. And so now the next cornerstone is something that now goes into this poem that I wrote today, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so let me get to where it is, and then we'll talk about this part of it for the rest. This one is called The Cornerstone of Love. There are buildings new and buildings old that are restored, but each of them have the cornerstone once poured. It goes from the beginning to the end, and also a building of love and peace. It was written in Job and in the Psalms, but first in Job, the oldest book. And here's what it was written. Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. This is God talking back to Job, who wants to find out why he's getting all these bad things happening to him. And so then it goes on as this. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? And who laid its cornerstone? Well, the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. And that's in Job 38, 3-5. But then in the book of Psalms, we listen yet about believing in the old and new, and here's what is written. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my song. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. That's something that we always know very much so, and that's again from Psalm 118, verses 14, 22, and 23. But that's not all. Remember, there were cornerstones in the building of America when our first president was George Washington, which we just went over. Our freedom of religions are built upon the first, and is our cornerstone where freedom is always here. Interestingly, that each cornerstone is often used to place things of then in the cornerstone's ground, which we talked about just earlier, about putting things down below. But we must know that the book of Ephesians tells it all. When you learn that nothing is over the heavenly spirit for a reason. And here's what is written. Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and aliens, but fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's household, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Christ Jesus himself as the chief cornerstone. In him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by the Spirit. That's amen. And that's where the Ephesians goes in too.
Yes.
So now you see that there are different ways for a cornerstone to work. We all have cornerstones. You talked about your grandfather. He was the cornerstone to your building. There's every cornerstone that life has brought to us together.
Well, and you talked a little bit about Washington, right? And I'll go there and then we can go deeper. But, Washington didn't set the physical cornerstone.
Right.
He set the cornerstone as an example of what this country should be. And I tell people, if you go back and you look, there were very few people in history, two that I can think of, right, that had absolute power as human beings that were handed to them. They could have been kings, emperors, and they both walked away. One was Cincinnatus, who walked away from being the Roman emperor and went back to his farm. And a lot of the founding fathers looked up to him, and George Washington did the same thing. There were people that said, well, you can be our king. And the fact that he had the moral ability, right, and the integrity to say, that's not what we fought for, and we're not going to do that again, and served his time and then went back home, was absolutely amazing. You just don't see that in history. So for him to be at a point in time when you could beat the greatest empire in the world and then not take power over that, I mean, obviously, I think God had him in the right place at the right time, so that the freedoms that we've had for the last 250 years, you have to look at Washington as one of the ones that upheld that.
Well, in the state capitol, when I was working there and doing things as a person doing an elevator operator, going in, down below where you go all the way down to where the pipes are and everything else, you find where his tomb was. And they later moved it, but the tomb is there, right in the middle of the capital of the United States. So that's how important that is.
No, and I just think we benefited from that. I think we overlooked that a lot of times because it set the standard.
That's right.
And then everybody else followed that standard. And in other countries, if you look at unrest, typically unrest in other countries, you don't have a Washington figure that says, yeah, I'll take control for a while and then I'll freely give that up. People just don't give up power that way.
And look how many people's names end in Washington. Streets are named in Washington.
Yep.
There's all kinds of ways because Washington made the freedom come into America. Now, he didn't deal with the slaves because that was something that was very difficult because of the English were always doing that at the time, and it took a lot of different efforts to later make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we go deep into that. We are not a perfect country in that sense, and the world was struggling with that at the time. Would have been great if we'd been able to do that, but you never would have got the 13 colonies to agree on that.
That's right.
And because we didn't solve that problem in the late 1700s, early 1780s, right, when we were doing the Constitution, we sacrificed a lot of Americans to settle that 100 years later.
That's right.
Right. I mean, it
and we did it here. We also did it right here in St. Augustine.
Oh, yeah.
St. Augustine became the place that made this stuff that makes our cornerstone become so important to us. The cornerstone that started and the cornerstone of love.
Well, just like the rest of the country, right? You have instances in St. Augustine, Sisters of St. Joseph being one of those instances, right? A phenomenal example of this is the 100% the right way to do it. Fort Mose, right? But then you have our history in the 1960s when it's not a very good time and not a good look for St. Augustine. My mom was working at the Commerce Department when the picture of the acid being poured in D.C. and the picture of the acid was being poured into the swimming pool, right?
Downtown.
A horrible example of how to treat other human beings. So even St. Augustine has this mixed history with, amazing acts of kindness and doing it the right way and amazing acts like,
well, you know what's going on. We have such a very significant religious location, almost like Israel. And as a result of that, when you have these things that happen, there is the bad and the good. And because the bad is always trying to knock over the good, it's like what we're about to have happen for the Easter period, because it goes from winter to spring, and there is a big fight between the cold and the warm.
Yes.
There's stuff. It's almost itself that the seasons are telling us the same thing we're talking about right now. Yeah, it's amazing how that works out.
No, and you're right. There are places that things happen that are phenomenal. And then you see something years later, and you're like, well, why there? Why did that happen in a negative way? And it's almost as though there's forces that are trying to tear down that good.
Yeah.
right? Trying to overwhelm that, trying to make you forget that, yes, there were great things that happened.
Well, and we know that Fort Mose was really good this past 2 weeks, where they've had the singing of both the jazz and the blues, and they were just some of the really best that I had seen.
Yep.
Some that were just so good that you could hardly get away from it. So there was one that was there. But yeah, it's and the way they built that fort now, where everybody's participated in it and everything else, has been so good that I'm looking for that cornerstone.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it.
No, I think again, that group has done a phenomenal job in getting that. But I look at that as it was the first free settlement in what would
That's
become
right.
the United States.
It is.
And it's so important to our history.
Yeah.
And, it's just absolutely amazing that was here in St. Augustine. And I think that was just a wonderful part of our history. And the Sisters of St. Joseph,
Yeah.
right? Doing what they did and being told, if you don't stop, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah, that's right.
We're still going to continue to teach the African American kids. It's like, that's just, and I was taught by the Sisters. There's a lot of pride in that for me, that they took that stance
Right.
and said, no, we're going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we want to do, is always do the right thing. That's
Yes.
the place that it goes. So as we're speaking about all of these things together, let's talk a little bit about why we have so many churches here in our community. We've got an Episcopal church across the way. We have the Catholic Church, which is not just a church, but is one that's been there for so much long as well. Both of them are very old in the process.
Well, and I'll tell you a foundation story. About 10 years ago, we were asked to add some restrooms onto the side of the cathedral.
Right.
So brand new building, we dig the foundation, and we dig down next to the foundation for the cathedral. And I'd gone back and looked. Well, that cathedral foundation was set, I think, in like 1750s or 60s. It was before the United States had the Declaration of Independence. And I told my guys, I said, we're looking at a foundation that was set before the United States existed. Right?
Wow.
When they set this foundation, all of America was ruled pretty much by the British.
Right.
And I said, so this is an amazing thing. Nobody gets to see this. And I said, I know we're going to cover it all back up, but this is really cool that we're all standing here looking at something that's been in the ground that long and has supported this structure through fires and all the things that the cathedral went through.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you find the foundation?
We didn't. We found the foundation. We didn't find the cornerstone because we were on the side of it. Yeah. But we did. And so it would have been great to have found that.
Yeah.
We didn't. And I wish we had, but yeah, it was just an amazing to be able to look at that and go, wow, that's where all of this started. And the amount of time that I spent in that cathedral as a kid to be able to actually look at the foundation of that as a builder was really, really pretty.
Oh yeah. Another one of the same things you've done with Flagler College and everything else. So
Yes.
yeah, you've had both of those opportunities. So we know again, as we're going through this process, is that as you were working around and going to schools here, and you've gone to all the Catholic schools here in town, and you ended up going down to Lakeland. Isn't that where you went to do
Florida
your
Southern.
college?
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
So that was it.
I was a big surfer, Rick, and I knew that if I went anywhere near the beach, I was going to have a hard time getting out of college.
Well, you and Mark Bailey should have been able to do it together.
No, it would have been. We would have been a very bad influence on each other at that time, and so I had to get somewhere. And the other, I was a communications major, and Florida Southern was a little unique. It was a small college with the Lakeland Ledger, which was a New York Times paper, and the Tampa Tribune. So big papers, a lot of schools. First semester I was in journalism writing, they came to us and said, we'll pay you to cover sports stories. If I had been at Tallahassee or in Gainesville, I would have been a senior when I finally got that opportunity, and I would have worked for free.
Right.
And so it was a phenomenal opportunity to work for one of those two papers and get paid to do it. And, all of my conservative friends would make huge fun of me today, but I worked for the New York Times chain back in college, but it was a great way. I'd cover high school sports. The only bad thing is I was addicted to early morning classes so I could get them over with. So going and finishing typing if you didn't have a numeric keyboard, you don't understand what I'm about to say, right? But typing a box score for basketball took 25 to 30 minutes. Typing the story took 15.
Wow.
Because you had to shift. I mean, it was all across the top. There wasn't this numeric keyboard on the side. And now they don't even put that in because it takes so long to fill it out, right? They just put the story in. So Yeah, that was the hardest part. You go in there and type the story up, and you go, oh, I got 30 more minutes to type the box score. And you were hoping that only like 6 kids played per team. Because if one team emptied the bench and they all got 2 points, you're going to be there for a while. But yeah, it was really a great opportunity to be down there and to study, and had some good teachers down there as well.
Well, Pastor Will Wold of the Methodist Church is also went there with there as well.
We had a lot of pastors that came out of Florida Southern. Toombs, who is one of the Catholic priests, I think he's up in DC,
right.
Was a few years behind me at Florida Southern. And then my own roommate is a Methodist priest up in Jacksonville on the south side.
Yeah, it's very much, a lot of Methodists go to that.
Yes.
That's a good place for that as well. So yeah, no, it's interesting as how that all plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great, but no, but I think the cornerstone is such a huge part, and then you get to the religious part. One of the lines that I was able to do a little bit of a thank you at the grand opening for West Augustine, and I Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're not building the house, you really are laboring in vain. And then this weekend, I got the kind of double dip church services. I was over at Anastasia Baptist. Walter West interviewed a good friend of mine and his wife, Sal and Tanya Rapero. And, in Walter's sermon, he talked about in Luke, but if the builder doesn't build the foundation deep, when the flood comes, the building will not withstand it. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing that. But there's a lot to that. If you don't dig deep in your faith, when hard times come, you're going to struggle, because you will 100% need that faith. And you need it every day, but you really, truly need it in those difficult times.
Oh yeah.
And we're all going to go through that. Life is not kind to us. It is going to give us things that we are going to have to deal with that are really hard.
Well, and we know that as we develop ourselves in our relationship with God, that there are some good days and bad days. And you know what? The more that you're weak, the better it is for him. Because the weaker you go, the more you depend on him.
Yes.
And that becomes the very interesting part. And it's not easy. It's not easy, because here we are with so many of the different, not only religions, but also the various political things now are fighting on each side, most like it used to be way back a time when the Adams and the Jeffersons were fighting each other. It's very similar to that period of time, because people forget that history has a lot to be talked about, and you get to learn about that history, and you learn the history of God.
Yes.
And then once you do that, it's from the beginning to the end. And now you figure this out. So I know that all of these things happen for a reason, and we don't know what that reason is.
No, we don't. And I think that that reliance on God, the more you let go, the more you learn and the more you get. And we all like to think as men, right? And also women, right? That you're in control of things, and we're really not. Yeah. We're living in that. So I'm a big schedule driven person, and I would make a schedule, and I'd leave the house, and I'd be working on phone calls on the way to the office and all the things. And about a year ago, I was in the middle of reading the Bible from start to finish last year, and I'd never done that in a year. And I said, okay, I want to get this done. But in the middle of that, one day, I went to leave my driveway, and I thought, I've been working on my list for 30 some years, and I've been stressed, and I've been worried about it, and I've worked hard at it. But you know what? I leave now in the morning, and I go, God, this is my list. But I know you have a completely different list.
That's right.
So I'm looking forward to seeing where you're taking me today. And I'm going to just enjoy that ride. I'm going to try to get some of my list done while I'm doing the things that you put in front of me. And probably one of the greatest things that happened last year, Home Again St. John's was building property on State Road 16. And we had money from the county. Construction costs had gone up. And so we had a delta of quite a significant amount of money.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so we looked at it as a board, and we said, well, we need to go to the banks, and we need to figure this out. And so we went to the banks, but when you get money from the state and from the federal government, sometimes they have a thing called a clawback clause. So if you fail within a certain number of years, they will take that property, they will sell it, and they will recover the grant money that they gave you as an entity. So all of our property was owned without debt, because we had bought it through grants, either state grants or federal grants through money through St. Johns County. And the banks looked at us and said, we can't loan you anything.
Because of that.
Because of that. But the property's free and clear. No, it's really not, because this clawback clause exists. So then you're looking at this delta, and I would go every day and go, Lord, I have done a lot of things in this community. This is one that you called me to do back in 2012. It was not on the top of my list, but I felt that on my heart that I had a skill set that you needed, and I would do this. So this is your mission. So I'm going to keep going, and one day you're going to show me how this works out. So we keep working through this. We keep trying to figure out where we're going to get this money, and we were able to get some money from the Weaver Foundation, but it wasn't everything that we needed. And before the Weaver Foundation came through, we had a gentleman that came and said, I want to come visit your facility. I'm visiting some stuff in town. I represent a group, and we donate money. So we needed X amount of dollars. And we're thinking, well, the Weaver Foundation will get us part of the way there. And if this guy donates a little bit, we get a little bit closer. And then the board can kind of step in, and we're working all this stuff.
Sure.
And we get an email before one of the board meetings. Ellen Walden walks in and she says, have you looked at your email today? I said, no, I've been getting ready for the board meeting. She said, look at your email. So that gentleman, who was unbeknownst to all of us and has wanted to remain anonymous, gave us more money than we needed.
Wow.
Said, we know you're asking for this, but if we give you this, we give you backup and we give you additional things. And I just looked up, I said, Ellen, that's God. That is absolutely 100% God that is solving that problem. We had not gone out and solicited this guy. He found us through another agency. And so I've told people that story. I said, you just have to believe. You just have to absolutely believe, because there is no rational way as a financial person you would go, okay, this is an easily solvable thing. But I just kept saying, God's got this. God will take care of it. He put us on this path. We're doing things to help people that are homeless and are poor, and that's exactly what he wants us to do, and he did.
Yeah, well, those things become so significant because, as I said on this poem, it was really the cornerstone of love.
Yes.
And that's really where it comes from, is because when God is if we follow what God's path is, he takes us there. Sometimes we have to go over the mountain, and it looks like we can't make it. But you know what he does? He grabs us by his right hand, his righteous right hand.
Yes.
And then takes you up there so you're not ever hurt as you're going through.
Yes.
And so wherever that path takes you, it may be seeming tough to you, but it's never any tough with God.
Well, and if you stay the path, right?
Stay the path.
Stay the path.
Stay the path.
So one of my really fun books as a kid to read was The Hobbit.
Right.
And Tolkien was a very religious man. He and C.S. Lewis, a lot of...
Sure. They did together a lot of things,
So and I tell people this all the time, so when you're working on something, don't leave the path, right? If you've set the path, stay on the path. And I go back to The Hobbit when they're going through Mirkwood Forest.
Right.
Right. And they're almost to the end. And they send Frodo up to the top of this tree, and he's in a valley, and all he can see is more trees. But when they come out of the valley, they're at the end of the road. They're almost to the end. What do? They leave the path. And then all chaos breaks loose, right? You're almost there. So I think so many times when you're almost there, have faith that God's going to get you the rest of the way there. Don't leave that path. Just keep working the path.
Well, try Moses on the same story.
Yes.
Yeah, Moses does the same thing because they going around for 40 years, going around in circles.
Yes.
They could never follow the path to where they were going.
No.
They had to do it. They had to have more food. So they get food. Oh, then they said, well, no, we want something else. And then they do all these other things, and it continues on.
But God was shaping them. They had spent years as slaves.
That's right.
He was shaping them to be free people before they went into the promised land.
Oh yeah.
And he wasn't done shaping them. And every time they complained, he had to shape them a little bit more. So yeah, and you're back to your Job in the poem.
That's right.
Where Job feels like, well, I'm owed an explanation. I was like, I created all this. I don't owe you anything.
That's right. Not only do I not owe you anything, you have to answer my first 64 questions first. And so I always thought about that as the old thing that was on TV on the questions and stuff. So yeah.
Well, it's the thought of I and Job was very obstinate with his friends, and I'm a good person and therefore none of this should have happened to me.
Right.
And, you know, as I said earlier, life is a little tough on all of us, right? None of us there's a lot of things that we all have to deal with.
It is.
Nobody, I mean, I think in a lot of ways in our society, people will look at someone and go, well, they have this money or they have this house or they have that car or they all have problems. No, nobody gets out of this without having to deal with something that is very tough for them to do. And so when you look at them and you go, well, they got it easy, you just don't know the path they're walking on.
I've said this before on the show, but it really fits right exactly what you just mentioned. When I went to Ukraine in the 1990s, right after the fall of communism, that I was there, and there was this one fellow that I ended up being with, and I've explained it before to the group, so I'm not going to go into the details but it's very important what happened. When I was in his home, because I'd been invited there to do that, and that's very difficult because the food was very hard to get and so forth. But he was a member then of the bad groups of helping people, but they were the ones that put people in jail or killed them, and that was his purpose. He was a colonel in the KGB, and so I'm at his house, and now we're talking about God. And he said, and I had a watch on, and he said, well, you have a watch. I can get a watch here. And you have Palm Beach. We have nothing. And so I said to him, would you like the watch? Not really answering. And I take it off. I said, if you want my watch, just take it. And so I said, now I want you to know that our material life that we have in the United States takes us away from where we are, whereas with you, you have nothing except silence that you can do so much better to be able to be with God. Because now you have nothing, which is where God wants you the most, because he will take care of you in all the things you're about to do. And then later, the following year, I came back. And now he comes in, and another watch was being given that I didn't intend to have. I had it wrapped up, and they picked him to go up there and get this. And he says at the very end of that time, when he sees what happened, he says, I lied, and I will lie no more. And that's really the beginning of probably where this starts all the way through, when you start thinking about where you are following God. It was me being there and him being there together that we knew that there was a reason for that opportunity.
Yeah, and I mentioned C.S. Lewis earlier.
Right.
And C.S. Lewis,
he's one of my favorite of all.
Where he has a quote about friendship. And it talks about, you know, the difference in a few years of being born apart. How you think that your friends are just all random, right? Choice of going to a school, showing up at some event, random conversation with somebody. And that if you're a non-believer, you think all of these friends are just random things. If you're a believer, you believe that God put everybody in your life for a reason, and that they are there because God wanted you to be friends, not because it's some random occurrence of where you were and things like that. And I think I was blessed to realize that at a really young age. My wife looks at me sometimes and she says, you have the most eclectic group of friends I've ever known. She said, usually people are like, all their friends are a certain group. You have friends across all kinds of spectrums and religions and ethnicities. She said, and different things that they like to do. And some of them you don't even do, but you're still friends with them.
Right.
And I said, I just always look at that. If God put somebody in my life, in my way, so to speak, that there's something I can learn from them. And so I'm always looking forward to that. What does this person have to teach me? What am I going to get out of this?
Well, and that's true with everything we do with God. It's whether it's, again, I think just the smallest thing, he's there with you. Not just the large things, like I've got people in a hospital today. I've got people there, which I do, and I have some people going on, and I've got families fighting against other families and stuff like this, and it's and there's no reason, because it's only about material.
Yes.
And it's usually material things that are there, and it can be as much as a dog which is the one that loves each of you.
Yes.
And so it's very hard to take that position and then not follow through. You just can't do it.
Now, and God teaches you lessons that are really tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll try to, there's a long version of this story. I'll try to tell the short version. I've been blessed to be able to go surfing a bunch of times down in Costa Rica. We usually end up at this one beach, and there, all the beaches there have some guy that kind of protects the beach, and you pay him a little bit of money.
Sure.
And he watches your car, and and the guy at this one beach just wasn't a vocal, but he would always kind of be right next to you. Like all of a sudden you turn around and here he was,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It was a little like kind of creepy that this guy was right there. So the other parking lot attendants were much more outgoing, had a lot better English, Spanish skills, and you could talk to them, and we've become very good friends with them. So this guy, you always have nicknames for people if you're a guy, right? You like, I don't know the guy's name, so he was our creepy parking lot attendant. And then we had one guy that we surfed with for years, and every time you'd say hi to him, he would just like stare through you. You didn't exist. So he was angry surfer guy. And so we'd known these guys for several years. We're down there on the beach one day, and we're in between surf sessions, getting to go back out, getting a drink of water, and angry surfer rides up on his motorcycle, hops off of his motorcycle, hugs the creepy parking lot attendant, gives him the hat off of his head. And I'm sitting there watching that going, man, I did not know I was going to get hit with a 2x4 from the Lord today. Because here's a guy that I don't think has much grace in him, giving all the grace he has to the poorest guy on this beach. And man, I need to learn from him. Yeah. The guy that I think doesn't like anybody is teaching me, you need to do more. You're not doing enough. And so later on in the trip, we see him in town. The angry guy's feeding every stray dog in town.
Wow.
And I'm like, Lord, you are not done teaching me. You're just like hitting me. So we go up to him and we start talking to him, and he knows the whole story of the guy on the beach. And the guy on the beach is Miguel. And so now we know Miguel and things. And then he's telling us the story of him being run off by some non-locals. And he and a bunch of other guys said, you can't run this guy off. He lives here. And this is his job, and this is what he does. And so we get talking to the angry surfer guy, and he's like, yeah, my name's Mike. And I'm like, man, Lord, that's just like a lot of hits with one 2x. And have become friends now with that guy. But it took that interaction of watching him do something that I should have already been doing.
That's it.
And it was just like, man, that's okay.
It reminds you
of
that really.
It really, and my friend that was with me on the same said, that was really a hard lesson we needed to learn. I said, yeah, we were taking for granted two guys that we just discounted.
Yeah.
And not I didn't like, just didn't know. And you kind of, I say, come up with names of them. You're like, man, we really were wrong.
Yeah.
This is a really an amazing lesson to learn.
Oh, that became Mike, huh?
Yes. They're now friends. And we were leaving that town one time, and there was a flood, and I didn't have a lot of money on me because we were hustling to leave town. And he's like, yeah, these people lost this. And I just said, here's everything I have on me right now. And I gave it to Mike, and he's like, well, this is going to get taken care of. And I looked at him, I said, buddy, I said,
not
my job was to give you the money.
That's right.
You and God got to take care of that.
That's right.
That's between you and God. And I'm going to trust that you guys are going to take care of it. My job was to give you everything I had right now. And I did.
Right. And that's the most important.
That was it. I gave you what I had. I get, in your case, I gave you my watch to get your attention.
That's right. That's what you do.
It
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Not at all.
Doesn't matter.
No.
Well, we're getting close to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this has been something that has been between us. We've talked on other things as well.
God put both of us in each other's lives.
We have, and we've been doing it. I have you helped on another project and stuff as well, and you've been helping on an expert for me and stuff as well. And we're sitting here today. Didn't know why we were going to be meeting together today. I just asked you to do it, and you did.
Well, and my prayer before your prayer before that was that what we talk about today helps bring somebody closer to God.
And that's what we're talking about as we end this story, is that today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it and enjoy the rest of this week. Be enjoying all of the things that are happening this week. Fat Tuesday tomorrow. All we then have is Ash Wednesday and then Ramadan, and then we move on. But enjoy this day, and we'll be back again on another Sunday Reflection. Have a blessed day.